Unlock a new era in podcasting with Unfiltered Studios. Ready to break free from the ordinary? Dive into a world where authenticity meets innovation. Our network isn't just about podcasts. It's a revolution. From nostalgia to movies, sports to self-improvement, find your favorite podcast in an array of diverse shows, only at Unfiltered Studios. Join the movement. Subscribe to Unfiltered Studios today and join the podcasting revolution. Unfiltered Studios, where every voice finds its place. Visit unfpod.com today to find your favorite show.
Unfiltered Studios will help you press record.
The geeky dad of the week is...
Jerry Carita is with us today. He's a very prolific producer. You probably have seen a lot of his shows. One of his most famous, probably you've heard of it, The Comic Book Man with Kevin Smith. And he's done a lot of shows, and now he's branching out to do comic books. So, kind of full circle. Jerry has a new comic book series that he's developing with his kid, and he's going to talk about it on our show. So, check out the show notes. Hope you can support his new Kickstarter and help his dream become a reality. So, on with the show. Okay, everybody, we have a very special guest today. Jerry Carita is here. Now, Jerry, you're a fellow New Yorker like me. How'd you get into this comic book game?
So I think a lot of people our age. Have you been reading since you were a kid?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
See, I never had that moment. Like when I was a kid, no one ever handed me the comic book, for the first time, and I then found my people. It was much later. My day job all these years is I'm a reality show producer, and I worked on a show called Comic Book Men, which is about Kevin Smith's shop. Yeah, Kevin Smith's shop in Red Bank. And basically we were on set all day, and I was always into the stories, and I was always into the more sci-fi and superhero kind of movies and TV shows, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of my favorite things. Like my geek thing was always TV. But sitting in that comic shop while we were making the show all day, that's how I got started. Like listening to the guys banter about comics, and Kevin and Walt and Mike Zapsik and Ming and Brian Johnson, less into comics, but just all of them like in love with it. And I was sitting in a shop for like 10 hours a day. So I started reading The Walking Dead. That was my first comic.
Yeah. That's a lot of people's entry points right now was Walking Dead.
Yeah, you forget how old it is. I think it's like 20 something years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still, like, the show's still going strong. Not the comics ended, but it's a good entry point because it's not like the typical storyline that you see in comics, really.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what I liked about it. And I remember reading it and thinking, what's nice about this whole thing is you can do anything. I always had a million ideas for stories I wanted to tell, and all of them were too big or too like no one was going to give me $200 million to make a time travel epic,
Right.
So, yeah. But for a lot less money, I could write that as a comic book. And so I started thinking in terms of that. You can do things in comics that you can't do anywhere else.
Right. And
I really fell in love with that.
You can build a fan base. You can pitch it as something else, like maybe a animated thing or anything else.
Like down the road, the story can live on in other ways. But what I like the things that you can do in comics that you can't really do in other places. Things that, like, if you did the kinds of things you do in comics, like where the art can change completely, if you try to do that in a movie, people would look at it as like a weird experimental art house film.
Right.
But for a comic, it's just a cool comic, which is awesome.
It's like when they change an actor mid-season. It's like Darren looks different.
Darren, wow, you picked an old reference. I would have
gone. Well, I can't think of anything recent.
I probably would have gone with what was the oldest Connor sister on
Oh
Roseanne?
yeah,
Becky.
well, they always made a joke about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Becky.
So
Becky
I
Connor.
see Kevin. He's pitching a new reality series with his Smod Castle theater.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. No, I actually, so a lot of the guys that Kevin grew up with, I play poker with on a weekly basis. So
Oh, cool.
his friend who's owns the theater with him and runs the place, Ernie O'Donnell, is a buddy of mine. So I've heard a little bit about that.
So you started your own comic book company?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I think I, like everyone else, was sitting at home, and I had these stories that I was writing over the years, and I started working with a bunch of my buddies who were some of the production team from Comic Book Men. Started a company called Blue Juice Comics, which has been around now for like 10 plus years, I think 12 years, and I started working with them and kind of getting, post pandemic, kind of getting them back into the convention game a little bit. So we did New York Comic Con together, and I kind of used that all as an opportunity to learn, how a publisher works, and basically learn the fact that nobody gets rich making comics unless, you really like hit it big somehow.
Right.
It really is a passion thing. But I decided to start my own imprint, which is Thorny Comics, and I use that now to print my own stories, and I'm publishing a few projects that other people are doing as well.
Cool. So talk about some of the projects that you got in development right now.
Oh yeah. So the first one, I'm launching a Kickstarter tomorrow night. I'm sorry, this will be later, but it's going to launch on Thursday, February 8th. It'll run until middle of March, for a book called The Grizzly Crew, which was kind of co-created with my 8-year-old.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's funny. He just kind of he looked at something weird on my computer screen and had a funny idea and just told me about it. And I started taking notes because now it's a book, and that's the first new one coming up.
It's great that you can, bring your passion with your child and share it together. It's a great thing.
Yeah, he really likes it. He loves drawing. He loves telling stories. He's great, and he loves that kind of stuff. So it has been a lot of fun working with him. He come every day when I see him. He asks me if there are new pages, and I let him, the first time we had character designs from my buddy Nick Justice is the artist, and he did the character designs, and he sent them to us. And my son was like, I think this guy, his feet are too small. They should be bigger. And the feather. He started giving me notes, like without no prompting. He just was like a TV executive giving me notes. So that's one that's starting this week. A week later, in February 13th through also mid-March is another Kickstarter. So I'm in Scott Snyder's Our Best Jacket writing workshop.
Okay.
Kind of developing a lot of my own ideas, by listening to him and kind of applying all those lessons. And there are a bunch of people in the class who have short story concepts. And over the last few years, they've been collected into 2 volumes called Tales from the Cloakroom.
Okay.
And so this year I took over the project, myself and Veronica Howell, who's also in the class, and we're editing and publishing it together. And so we've converted it into an issue-based ongoing anthology series. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Every 3 months there'll be a new issue of Scott Snyder Presents The Cloakroom. And so it's all short stories by creators who are in his writing workshop.
Did you get any pointers from Kevin Smith himself? He's wrote
a lot of comics. I didn't share. Nah, it's funny. I told him last time I spoke with him, I told him what I was doing. He was very excited. He dips back in and out of comics all the time. I think it's a deal at Dark Horse or somewhere.
Right.
Maybe Vertigo or something. But he I can't remember. He not Kevin, but my first book Scott read and was very encouraging. And so that's the first thing I did, was called Cicada Samurai, which I'm in the middle of fulfilling now. And then the other person I ask advice of is my cousin is James Tynan.
Oh.
And so I've been bothering him on a pretty weekly basis, and texting him with like questions about artist rates and stuff like that.
That's cool. You got some big hitters as
I got very lucky with the connections I was able to make. And I mean, Comic Book Men was such a great, Kevin. I mean, Walt Flanagan did some artwork for me for my first Cicada Samurai story. That was a huge boon. He has a huge following of very loyal fans. They call themselves the Ants from the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast. And so they were all, and Walt's like wonderful about that. So that was great. So I've been very lucky, and I've also been very lucky that people I've just asked, like reached out to on Instagram, have answered and been into these ideas.
Right. So, tell us a little bit about what these projects are about, little summaries so people can know.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
the Grizzly Crew is it's a pirate, it's an all ages pirate story
Yeah.
where attacked by kind of evil pirates along the coast. They can hire the Grizzly Crew to help protect them. And the Grizzly Crew is a group of pirates, but they also happen to be bears.
Right.
And so it's a ragtag group of these gigantic, anthropomorphic bears,
Right.
and they protect these villages from, evil, scary pirates.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah. That would
and
work as an animated project, right?
I mean, I think so, maybe
Yeah.
down the road. Yeah. It's definitely like a lot of the creative touchstones for the project have been animated things that I loved as a kid.
Mm,
When Nick was doing the designs, we sent him, images from like gummy bears
right.
and the
Yeah.
old the
Tailspin.
Jungle Book. Yeah, 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 exactly.
Right.
Tailspin, yeah, exactly, which is just the Jungle Book. It's the same
Right.
characters, you
Yeah.
know. So I sent them all that stuff that I loved, and that's been awesome too, because it's it's kind of another way to get into that stuff with my own son. So that's been a lot of fun.
So this
So
is
that's
this is the book that you so what characters did your son come up with? Like how does it work between you guys?
so so when so here's how it went down.
I hope you
I was
signed a
messing around with
contract for
Midge.
him with like rights issues and stuff.
He's mad at me that he's not doing these podcasts, but everybody records these podcasts after work at like 10 o'clock. He's been asleep for 2 hours,
Right. Yeah.
Can I go on the video and talk about it? I'm like, we'll try to get one during the day. We'll get you in one for sure.
Right.
He's very excited about it. So that's been awesome. That's the Grizzly Crew. So basically, like as we were talking, he was just saying like he saw an image of a pirate bear that he asked me to make Midjourney create. I was messing around with Midjourney 2 years ago, the day it came out, like everyone else in the
Yeah.
world. And he walked in and he was like, "What's that?" And I told him it's an artificial intelligence art generator. And God bless him, at 6 years old, he went, "What's that? Explain it to me." And then immediately said, "Can it make a Spider-Man monkey? Can it make a minion wizard?" And it did all those things. And then he was like, "What about a pirate bear?" And then he was staring at it. And then he said, "Dad, his name is Captain Grizzly, and he's the captain of a pirate ship of bears." And I was like, "What?" And he just kept talking. And I started taking notes. He was like, "They go around fighting bad pirates and they get paid in treasure, but it looks like gold, but when you squeeze it, it's wax and it's filled with honey because bears like honey." And I was like, "That's great." And then he started coming up with these other characters. And he was like, there's a big, he said there should be a polar bear because that's the biggest bear. He likes watching YouTube animals, so he watches all, so he learns about these things. And so he said, I want there to be a polar bear, and the polar bear can be mad all the time. He's grumpy because, he wants it to be cold because he's a polar bear, but pirates are always like where it's hot, you know?
Hmm.
So he's always uncomfortable. So he's always grumpy. So I'm like, okay, a giant grumpy polar bear. And then, there was another one who's based on his sister, a 10-year-old bear named Rosie. That's my daughter's middle name.
Hmm.
Harlan's middle name is James. Harlan is my son who did this with me.
Yeah.
So there's a koala bear named Jimmy in the story. Those are the two main characters, Rosie and Jimmy. Captain Grizzly. And then he said, "I think the villain should be really scary, like a wolf." And then he
Oh
said,
yeah.
Captain. I was like, "Should it be Captain Wolfbeard or Wolfheart?" And he chose Wolfheart. So that's the villain in the story.
So
Um,
it sounds like a great all age story.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun writing it, and like a lot of the things I did with Blue Juice are not all ages, and a lot of the things you see on Kickstarter, are
Mhm.
not,
Right.
like the not safe for work stuff is what really does well there.
Yeah.
So it's my first, I've been involved in different ways in 3 different Kickstarter campaigns so far. They've all been pretty successful. We've all like hit our goal and then
Hmm.
some. This is the first one where, I think it might be a little bit lower just because support for this kind of book is not always as hot on
Yeah.
Kickstarter. But I've had so much fun writing it and
Hmm.
just trying to tell a good story. It's all kind of the underlying thing for me in the story is about kids and what they're afraid of.
Right.
It all comes from my son is afraid of bears. So I think
Mm.
he had a
Okay.
moment when he was staring at the pirate bear, and he had to come up with a story about it to kind of make it okay. And that's one of the ways kids cope with fear. They come up with a
Right.
fun story, and then
Yeah.
it's like it's a fun bear, not a scary bear.
Right.
You know, and so that's kind of what it's about. The story, in the story, there are children who are frightened, and their dad, in order to kind of calm them down, soothe their fears, tells them a story about it's okay. You don't have to worry about those pirates anymore. We hired the Grizzly Crew.
Right. You know, and right now all age graphic novels are really big, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, from your lips to God's ears, buddy.
Yeah.
I hope they are.
All my kids in school, that's all they read in
Oh,
school.
that's true. Oh yeah, yeah. Captain Underpants and
Yeah.
Dog and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it,
I hope it catches on, finds a small audience, and just enough that I get to keep writing it. I would be very happy
right.
with.
And you know, what are your plans after the Kickstarter? Are you gonna go to like New York Comic Con is coming up, right?
I don't know if I will be at New York Comic Con yet. I've done New York Comic Con now
Mm-hmm.
with Blue Juice, and hitting a big convention like that for someone like me, I think would be hard because I don't have enough.
Right.
I would definitely like it'd be good to start making contacts, but it's very expensive to get in the door. I
Yes.
probably will be at Brooklyn Comic Con, which is it's sooner. It's in June.
Right. Right. Maybe you can do like book signings.
Oh yeah. So Mike Zapsik down at the Secret Stash
Yeah,
you know,
you got an inside right there.
that's it.
Right?
He's floated the idea past me. You know,
Yeah.
as soon as I have a few things that I can reasonably sell that I might actually be
Mhm.
worth him, I don't want to waste his time either. You know, I'm not. I don't have a library yet.
Right, right. You
But
should
my
check out it's Bulletproof Comics in Brooklyn.
Bulletproof Comics. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me write that down. Hang on.
I also published and wrote a couple of comics myself, and that's where I did my first signing right
Oh
there
yeah.
as well. It's one of the bigger like comic book shops in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's right in the heart of Flatbush.
Oh, Flatbush. Okay.
Yeah.
I will absolutely reach out to them. Thank you.
Yeah. Right next to Brooklyn College.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that well. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. I will definitely reach out to them. That's great.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then you have like Midtown in Manhattan,
yeah.
Midtown Comics.
Those guys years ago, I don't think anyone I knew back in the day still works there. But there were a group of guys who were there. We did an episode of Comic Book Men that I'm not even sure. I don't remember now if this even aired. But we had this thing where the guys from Midtown Comics came down to the Secret Stash
Oh,
and kind of had like a comic trivia competition
oh wow.
thing with like their main guy who knows everything had a
Uh-huh.
thing with Mike Zabsik who
Who
knows
won?
everything for the other store. I don't even remember. It was
Oh
so
man.
long ago. It was like 12 years
How
ago.
did that not get released? That would have been so fun to
I'm
see.
trying to remember. I'm gonna ask Zabsik. I'm gonna find out. I'm actually gonna text him right now just in case he gets back to me in the next 5 minutes before we're done.
Wow. So Cicada Samurai, what is that about?
So again, this kind of came out of the pandemic a little bit. I've never been an anxious person, but I have 3 kids now, and as they get older, they just keep trying to kill themselves.
Yes, I
And
have
your
3 kids as
you know,
well.
yeah, as a dad, your whole existence is try to keep them alive until they're technically not your responsibility anymore, and hope that they stay alive after that.
Right.
So I had all this anxiety about my kids and safety, and then at the same time, in 2021, there was an enormous brood of cicadas that came out. It was
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
Remember? And I got obsessed with them, and I started reading about them. And they're like fantastic, weird, just dumb little. They're gigantic flies.
Beautiful looking creatures.
Gorgeous,
Yeah.
gorgeous. They're completely defenseless though. Like they can't fight. They can't.
No.
They come above ground. They've been underground for 17 years. They come above ground. They get like 3 weeks to live, and they drop dead.
Uh-huh.
While they're above ground, they never learn how to fly right. They just fly into stuff. They're just like big, hapless. They're like
Right.
awkward teenagers. They're 17 years old, and they're just
Yeah.
getting wings under them for the first time.
Yeah.
So I just took thought, like keeping 3 kids alive is like a full-time job, and it's like high anxiety. Imagine if you were the only adult and there were millions of teenagers and you had to try and keep all of them alive when they're
Oh, okay.
predators and all that stuff. And then the cicada is it all kind of came together that way. So the idea is there's a single immortal cicada samurai, and his job is to protect the brood when they emerge from the ground so that they can all travel up to the treetops, mate, and the whole system can repeat. So he protects them all from foxes and birds, and there's a cicada killing hornet, which is a gigantic monster of a thing. And he basically fights them all in order to protect the brood so that the species can continue.
That's a cool idea for a story. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and that's another one where I got very lucky.
It's
I
like
had this
Bug's
idea.
Life meets like a samurai movie.
Yeah, it's so this is so the samurai thing. So I had this idea. I was messing around, like, again, I'm not a good artist, so I had like hand drawn my own handful of really terrible ideas, and I just on Instagram I reached out to Takashi Okazaki, who did
Oh
Afro,
wow. Hmm.
and he replied, and he was into it, and he did my first round of character designs for the book.
Cool.
Um, it was awesome. He just was kind of into it. Cicadas, I didn't know this. Cicadas are an enormous thing in Japan too, and they're a big part of the culture there.
Well, it
So
even
he knew all
fits.
about
Yeah.
it. What's that?
It fits with the samurai tona.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Kurosawa's not around, so
Uh-huh.
I went to the next best person, and we started bouncing samurai stories off of each other for a while. And then he got very busy. He's doing Star Wars Visions, and he does a ton of
Oh,
animation work.
cool.
So
Yeah.
he kind of disappeared. I knew he wasn't going to be able to do the book, so I got someone else. Mary Landro is the artist on the book. She's amazing also. Um, but but yeah, that was the whole idea. It just kind of came out of that combination of things.
I remember seeing some ads for the Cicada Samurai on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I pushed that one a lot. I was
Hmm.
very proud of it. That's the one that I was writing when I started Scott's class, and he read the script. When you're in his class, you can meet with him, and so I sent it to him, and I had a 10-minute meeting with him, and he was very encouraging about
Hmm.
it, and it was great. So I'm very proud of it. It did well, and so I'm going to keep it going. And if I 10-page story that I wrote to sell the idea to a publisher, I'll do that. To a bigger publisher than me, I'll do that. And if not, I think the what's nice about Kickstarter is um it's like a different group of people from, like people who really like indie books. Those are very hard to get in
Right.
local shops
Yeah.
because comic shops are getting squeezed. They have to go with what sells, which is capes and tights. And so the rest of us kind of have to find our own way. And that whole community, there's a whole group of people. There's like probably not even that many, but a few thousand people maybe
Yeah.
total who are on Kickstarter and are just dying for these kind of out there indie stories and will support. And what's
And
nice,
they support each other. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. And I'm in a couple of Discord groups with people like Travis Gibb and Charlie Stickney and Frank Martin, and they're all just so like nice and welcoming and supportive and not competitive in any way. And
Okay.
it's great. It's so good. Um, so I'm really enjoying that. And so if I don't sell it to if I can't get a bigger publisher interested, I'll just keep coming back to Kickstarter because the
Right.
community launched it and they like it. If they like it, maybe they'll keep coming back for it, and
Right.
I'll
Right.
for as
I
long as they.
mean, um, the Ninja Turtles was a very indie book, and look at
Right.
that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Black and white used to just hand it out in local garages, and then
That's it.
blew up.
That's it. So, if you can get 100 people interested in your thing, you can make it, and Kickstarter the community there will welcome you and support it. And, it's great. It's been really wonderful.
So, what other projects do you have in the pipeline?
The Scott Snyder one, and then let me think of what else I'm doing. I'm doing another book with Rich Davis called Reign of Dracula.
No.
We actually just finished that campaign recently.
Yes, I remember seeing that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. He did Cult of Dracula with, I think the first book was with Source Point, and then Rise of Dracula, which I think was with Red 5 Comics, I want to say. And I think he just likes moving around. So he and I spoke. He was on a show for Netflix called Swap Shop that I produced. So that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just sold Cult of Dracula, which became a big hit for him. Big indie hit book. So we talked, and I know he doesn't have any Kickstarter experience, and I had just done three things myself.
Right.
Well, so we got together and we were doing 3 double-sized issues of the final, trilogy, basically, of
Right.
his
Right.
the trilogy of trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3. So we did the first one. We'll do the second one in a few months, and then the third one,
Yeah.
sort of toward the end of 2024.
So, on the producing front, what are you doing? Anything in the pipeline as well?
Well, I'm working on I don't know if I can really talk about the what I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
Really supposed to talk much about it. It's not necessarily something that would be super exciting for you or
Hmm.
your audience.
Okay.
But it's I'll say it's for Discovery Channel. And you know, over the last few years I've been pretty lucky. I did a History Channel show. I did a season of The Food That Built America.
I saw that.
The show
Yeah.
on Netflix, Slop Shop, that was a couple years ago. Um, and then going way back, Comic Book Man, I did Geeking Out, which was also with Kevin
Hmm.
Smith. That was another AMC show. And then it's kind of weird, like when you do what I do, you work on your one project,
Hmm.
as a freelancer, and then when that's over in a few months, I'll start to look for my next thing.
Right. You ever thought about maybe doing a reality series about an indie comic book creator?
Like just point the camera, turn around at myself.
I mean, you know a lot of them now because of your experience and
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
I've definitely been thinking about a lot of those guys will do their own streaming platform
Right.
podcast, weekly get together with the other guys in the group or something like that. So I've definitely been thinking about ways to take my, experience making.
Like like a Project Greenlight, but
That's
comic
fun.
book form,
That's
and you
fun.
have like the winner gets their book published at the end of the show.
That's fun. See,
Yeah.
these guys, I feel like what they would want to do instead is like a celebrity death match kind of thing with all of them, but in a comic book, Like it would turn into a comic book where like
Right.
each guys has powers that are based on the kinds of books they write, and
Right.
then to like murder each other. Which actually, now that we're talking about it, I might start taking notes on that idea. That's fun.
Yeah. See, we're just pitching ideas now on the show.
I love it. I love it, man. This is my favorite thing. This is the one thing about comics which I love. Like I've written for television too, and when you write a screenplay or a teleplay for TV, it's like you're writing like a manual. It's very
Right.
dry,
Yeah.
because there's 50 departments and 100 people, and they all have to read it and take data and then go build their part of the
Right.
thing.
Hmm.
They all have to come together at the end, and it all has to make sense. So your script is a manual. It's not really as much fun as this. Whereas like a comic book script is still kind of a manual, but it's only for one person. So if
Right.
you have a relationship with your artist, you can write whatever you want. You can
And
be like,
it's so great when the artist and you like
oh
mesh
yeah,
completely, you know?
yeah. And every artist I've worked with has been different, but it's like sometimes I'll be really specific about a page where I have something in my head that I just want to see. And
Right.
sometimes, depending on the artist, I'll be a lot more vague and I'll say, like, I don't know what this page is. I want to feel like this. And
Right.
then let them run with it and
Right.
let them surprise you. It's really collaborative. That part of this has been awesome, working with
Only
other
the only
writers,
the
editors, and
only
everything.
downside is like you can't do like a reshoot, you know?
That's true.
Change a scene here, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you can before you publish. You can always
Yeah.
ask them to rewrite it, to
But
redraw
that's
it.
a pain. It's a pain in the ass.
It's hard. Yeah. And you can only do that so much before whichever artist, the most patient
Yeah.
artist, is,
Yeah.
dude, just write it right the first time.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Artists can be very fickle.
Oh, sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we all can.
Yes. Yes. So the Kickstarter, how many days is it gonna run?
It's going to run for 4 weeks, both Kickstarters. So the Grizzly Crew starts February 8th. It'll run until March 8th ish.
Okay. We'll
Around
have this episode before that, so that's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be running until March 8th, and then the one for Scott Snyder presents the Cloakroom, that will run until March like 13th, I think.
Okay. Scott Snyder is supporting the book and everything, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he supported the last two. I think for the last one, as a reward, he signed a bunch of the books.
All right.
He's like, there's a lot of really nice. I've met so many nice people in comics, but he is among the most gracious and
Yeah.
just giving of his time, and he just loves teaching and loves
Yeah.
supporting it. He's offered more help that we felt bad, and we were like, no,
Wow. Okay.
let us do the work. Like we can do it.
Should make him
Uh,
write a forward for the book.
we're doing that. I'm
Oh yeah.
definitely,
Yeah,
yeah, no,
exactly.
he's
That's
definitely
good.
he's definitely
That's
doing that,
definitely good.
but he's super supportive, even just letting us put his name on the cover. You know what I mean? That's
Exactly. I mean, I was surprised that, his name is
That's
there.
what I mean. That's what I mean. He's super, super supportive,
Hmm.
and just like loves answering questions and talking about the
He's
process.
not like a lot of these comic book writers, they get sometimes they get a little full of themselves, you know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. He like so far he hasn't that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's
And,
cool.
and the
That's
and the
cool.
guy can do anything, you know, like he did like indie horror, and then
Exactly.
he killed Batman for so many years and was
I mean, his
amazing.
Batman run is classic now, you
Yeah,
know.
it's exactly. It's amazing. And then he left that and just decided to do a bunch of other random, like, dipped his toe into pools that he's never swam in before.
Right.
And
Yeah.
every one of those stories is fun and great and like,
I would say his Batman is probably up there with Frank Miller. I'm gonna go for.
he would be very like cautious about taking that compliment, I
I
think.
mean,
But
the some of
but I
the
agree.
some of the concepts that he's created in that short time, they're already adapting it into
Mhm.
animation and movies, you
Yeah, I
know.
think the Court of Owls is already an animated film.
Yeah. And I hear a
Um,
lot of the Batman is based on Scott's stuff too.
yeah. Yeah,
So
he wrote like a more cerebral Batman.
yes.
Batman,
Yeah.
like Batman the Great Detective. Like it's more
Mhm.
about that than everything else sometimes. But I love it. But yeah, he's amazing and so supportive and just like nice, just such a nice guy.
Mhm.
No one has a bad word.
So the show is called The Geeky Dad, and I would say that you are a geeky dad,
Thank you.
right? You have
Absolutely.
3 kids. You have how many boys?
I have boy, girl, boy, so 2 boys.
Okay. So you have any plans to do like something collaborative with the girl? Like more?
Um, not not in comics yet. I think the thing with Harlan just happened on its own. It's like an
Okay.
organic thing. It's funny because the older two got a little jealous at first, so they
That's
started
exactly
pitching.
what happened with my kids when we did books together too.
Yeah, they immediately started pitching
Yeah.
ideas, and I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to let them down, you know.
I know. Because they said, you know what? I mean, I'll probably end up doing something with each of them. They all have kind of different. My oldest guy likes reading the story, creating them. So I don't know if he'll ever want to really do one. But
Hmm.
my daughter wants to do everything that either of her brothers are doing.
That's
So
cool.
I
Yeah.
fully expected to do a book with her at some point.
Yeah. And just like you, I got my kids in like all different sports. They got soccer, they got taekwondo, swimming. It's hard to keep up with all the stuff, you know,
Yeah.
plus to have time with them, you know, and it's good that you're mixing your, you know, work life with your kids with this book. So that's cool.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun doing it.
So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for
And
having me.
it was kind of a time crunch, but it's good, right?
No,
Right?
this was great. This was great. I'm
Yeah.
happy to do it again and come on in
Yeah,
anytime.
we will love to have you on the show. You know, we love having geeky dads on the show. That's the title of the show. And I want to say I hope you get a lot of good success with this Grizzly Crew. That's the name of the book, right? Yeah,
Was it
so
good?
Grizzly Crew, check the show notes. It's gonna be there, the links to the Kickstarter. And Jerry, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap.